When we search for understanding about the higher levels of consciousness, we are offered with multiple variations and interpretations of what reaching full spectrum consciousness can look like. And whilst all of them are true, with many names and many levels, for someone looking into consciousness, it can become more about understanding the levels versus feeling inspired to achieve those levels. So let's look at the known view of higher consciousness and break them down into relatable processes that will allow us to see the purpose and benefit of choosing to reach full spectrum consciousness. The higher states. Transcendental consciousness, the fourth state, the state after waking, dreaming and sleep states, where the mind and senses are completely silent, but consciousness is fully awake. Cosmic consciousness, the fifth state, where the mind is elevated beyond the awareness of self and ego, and enters a place of oneness and unity with the universe. Divine consciousness, also known as God or Christ consciousness, the sixth state, an awareness of the higher self as part of a universal system. Although it can be interpreted in a number of ways, a common understanding is that God consciousness is the state of consciousness in which a person has found self-realization and unity with God. And for the last level, full spectrum consciousness, also known as unity consciousness, the seventh state, a level of vibration that goes beyond the self and reaches the hearts and souls of all beings and existence. Unity manifests as the senses of oneness, compassion, love, and respect for human beings and for nature. And this is what the levels would look like within the experience of consciousness, with the beliefs of our social structure filling the gap between our awakened and transcendental state. It's through acquiring the higher levels that we shed the beliefs of the system to reach full spectrum consciousness. As we reach each level, we are redefining the foundation perspective of our subconscious, whilst unifying the connection between our subconscious and conscious mind. And with every non-physical reaction creating a physical result, it's here where we get to see how the human experience can improve the higher we reach, whilst also confirming that many versions of existence are readily available to us when we choose to think or move outside of what we believe to be true. We are only a layer of beliefs away from our highest version of living. The more we commit to our spiritual growth, the quicker we are able to improve our physical circumstances. And The Map of Consciousness by David Hawkins explains this perfectly. Each identified state of being has an emotional state and a viewpoint on life. The lower identified states, such as fear, grief, and desire, are much of what our social system has normalized us to experience. As we improve through the states, our emotional state and viewpoint also improve. And as every non-physical experience has a physical result, our physical world will shift and improve alongside our state of being. And whilst we now understand the functioning equation of consciousness, we need to acknowledge the universal measurement used to manage the transitions taking place between the two. The elements that allows consciousness to formulate an equal reaction to the fluidity taking place within it, both physically and non-physically. This element is energy and can also be seen on the map of consciousness. It's the work we do to improve our identified state, emotional state, and viewpoint that increases the frequency of our energetic vibration. So whilst we know every non-physical experience has a physical result, it's energy that is the measuring factor, allowing consciousness to convert the result into a spiritual or physical form. So the functionalities of our human experience is managed, projected, and created through the same concept as Einstein's theory, that mass and energy are the same entity and can be changed into one another. So what does this mean? It means the life of your dreams is available to you when you improve the energetic frequency of your spirit. The house, the car, the environment all have their own frequency and can be obtained by committing to your spiritual growth, reaching full spectrum consciousness, and completing the task you came here to do. When we evolve our existence through energy, we are no longer pressurized by the concerns that surround the concept of money. We understand that the functioning body of consciousness is already doing the work of transforming the vibrancy of our energy into the mass of our desires. So whilst those believing in the social system are pressurized with finding the financial solutions to their dreams or problems, by choosing to evolve through the rules of energy, the functioning body of consciousness is the solution, and our only responsibility to our human experience is to manage our frequency, live aligned to the beliefs and truths that come with full spectrum consciousness, and fulfill the task we came here to do. So if the life of our dreams can be obtained by simply raising and converting our energy, then what is the relevancy of money? It's not, and that's the point. Human activity is organised around the concept of money. The need to acquire money is what makes humanity work with each other in the way we do. We create products and services to sell to one another to obtain money, and the overuse of sourcing and manufacturing the materials for those products and services is what equates to the misuse and destruction of our natural world. So when we remove the concept of money, we remove all that is done to create it. When we enter into the upper levels of higher consciousness, we understand the connection and fluidity between all living things. And like everything else, money does have its own frequency, based on the fact that we believed in its value and precedence. So whilst eradicating the concept of money is beneficial to all, it is a process. So it's worth understanding that whilst money is relevant in our construct, working with energy will attract the frequency of money quicker than working ourselves for money ever could. So however money decides to change through humanity's reach for full spectrum consciousness, by working with energy, we will always receive the physical value of the current governing mechanism of exchange. Meaning we will always be supported by the body of consciousness, hence it always being our solution. But if we're all focused on raising and converting our frequency, then how can we attract the life of our desires if no one is making the items we desire? This is why completing the task you came here to do is a huge part of full spectrum consciousness. Like nature, we all have a specific purpose that equates to the functionality and progression of our world. Like Einstein creating a way for us to understand energy, or Nikola Tesla's intent to create free energy for everyone. We all have a unique ability that once understood would contribute to humanity functioning freely, where we can enjoy the creations of one another whilst having equal access to them. So by switching our focus from money to energy and working within the natural law of our existence, we would create a world of equality, peace, and freedom. And whilst humanity reaching full spectrum consciousness would reverse the effect of climate change, it would also neutralise all of our social issues. It's the limiting beliefs of the system that hold the barrier between true human connection. Our ideas of who we are based on our personal and social identity. The system creates a narrative for each group and through mass information conditions us to believe the characteristics of those groups. So whilst individually we are trying to find our placement within our designated groups or fighting against the social narratives of our groups, we are still subconsciously using the narratives to prejudge those who don't fall into the groups we belong to. It's this bubble of confusion around identities that stops humanity connecting or progressing in the way we could. If we can see and feel the injustices taking place within the groups we belong to, between our group, the system, and the social treatment of our group, then couldn't this be happening to all groups, just in a different way? When we evolve spiritually, this is what we learn: how to bring emotional alchemy to the identities we belong to, whilst reflecting on the ones we may have judged. By venturing through the process of full spectrum consciousness, we heal the personal and social narratives that are relevant to our own experience, gaining a perspective that allows us to see past the narratives of all human identities, to connect with the only identity that matters, the soul. So whilst full spectrum consciousness offers so many global benefits to one another, our world, and how we can maneuver within it, as an individual experience, it also gives us the option to improve all aspects of our life: health, friendships, energy, soul partner, spirituality, self-love and self-validation, creativity and invention, and recreational activities. Unlike money, energy will attract the equivalent frequency in all areas of our life. Our soul-aligned partner, friends, adventures, and creativity will all gravitate towards us through the fluidity of consciousness. So you see, it's having trust and faith in the functionality of consciousness that allows us to release the weight of our social ideology. So with all the benefits that full spectrum consciousness offers, globally and individually, imagine what our world and human experience could look like in reality. Imagine how free from thought our minds could be, where we focus on all the things we want to achieve versus what we need to do to survive. How spontaneous we could be with our actions due to the freedom of being able to do what we want to do when we decide. This is financial freedom without the stress of creating the finances to be free. Equality, peace, freedom, connection, fulfillment. This is our potential existence. And whilst making the invisible visible may seem like a tough task, it's relying on the guidance that higher consciousness offers and our innate human senses to bridge the clarity between our spiritual and physical world. So with the body of consciousness supporting each aligned move we make, we begin to feel the essence and intention our Creator created for us. This is God consciousness. And with the option to reach full spectrum consciousness based on the pace we choose to commit to our growth and not a specific time, what are we waiting for? We could change our trajectory in a matter of years and not decades. So whilst seeing the possibilities may be enough for some of us to choose full spectrum consciousness, it won't be the case for all. As amazing as this sounds, some of us won't be able to see past what our own beliefs allow. So the only way information can be seen as truth is for those receiving the information to also be witness to the process in real time. So this is my purpose, to be that example. Climate change, survival mode, the matrix, consciousness, and full spectrum consciousness was all the information we needed before we could get to this point, where I can demonstrate in real time what living in full spectrum consciousness and working with energy looks like. But before I can do that, I need to make sure we're all in a place where we can fully believe all that is about to unfold. So to do that, you need to know my story thus far. So let's start from the beginning. This is Decoding Humanity with Vanessa Nash.
Can you hear freedom calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it.